Welcome to the Standout Women podcast. I'm your host, Michelle B Griffin. As an author, speaker, and certified personal brand and PR strategist, I'm here to empower and elevate women just like you to get visible, build your personal brand, and own your lane as a visible brand authority and thought leader in your space. I'm super excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. Welcome everybody to this week's episode. I'm really excited about this topic, very passionate about this topic, all about niching. But before we get into it, without further ado, I'm really excited to have on the show again, Humaira Akhter. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me and always delighted to be in your presence.
Thank you. You were on the podcast almost a year ago, one of the most highly downloaded episodes about self-awareness. And now you've really morphed into alignment. Brings us to today's show all about forget your niche. Like, are we off our rockers? Are we telling people to forget their niche? Let's get into it because this is a hot topic people really struggle with. And it's all over LinkedIn and everywhere about niching. So let's get into it. Why did we start that topic? Why did we name it Forget Your Niche?
I've heard lots of things around my peers that I've been connected with that as soon as they hear that word, it's restricting. It feels like I'm being boxed in or somebody is forcing me to be on a certain lane and I have no freedom. I have no flexibility of just changing up things and it's not fun anymore. The term can be very allergic to a lot of people.
Absolutely. I know you see this all the time in your work. I do too. Mm-hmm. I've had a podcast episode and you'll hear me a lot of times saying, I don't even like the word niche. So I use the word narrow lane. You've got to operate in a narrow lane. We need to know where you're placed in my life. And in the business context where we're solving problems, we're constantly needing and looking when most of us walk around with a problem in our brain. How are you placed in my brain so I know you're the person to help me? So you've got to have some lane of definition, a professional lane that the right people can find you, because otherwise you're going to see a sameness with 8 billion people in the world, hundreds of thousands of the same profession. And, especially on LinkedIn, there's 1 billion members. You've got to have a lane, a context. And that's what we're talking about here. So can we agree? We said, forget your niche. Forget the term if that's what gives you the hives.
I think that the term brings anxiety for a lot of people. But I like what you said. Context is everything, especially when positioning and placement of because we do this every day in our life. We talked about this. I have a hairdresser that I trust. I won't go to anybody. We have a dentist that takes special care for our kids. Of all the dentists, we go there. Why? And we do this placement of positioning every day, even as human being, like that's the psychology, the basic human psychology of how we think about things. We like to categorize. We like to put things not in a box, but our brains are always searching. Where does this fit in? Where does it go?
Exactly. Let's use two examples here because I love examples. If you need a hairdresser, and I even told this to my hair person, I found you because you had great reviews. I am really looking for someone who specializes in chemically damaged hair. And I said, if you had that specialization, the search terms would find you and you would just stand out among all the other hairdressers. And you bring your children to pediatric dentists. They're more specialized. They could even be more pediatric dentists who specialize in kids who can't stand it. Or here's another example. When my son was up until about 4, he hated getting his hair cut. It was torture. It was like taking him to the dentist and getting a root canal. Just get a haircut. So we actually went to a hair place that specializes in kids being scared. It's a thing. That is categories, specialization, and context. So we need context. Okay, we need a hairdresser, we need a dentist, or XYZ. But then we have a problem. That's what I posted about today. Forget about the niche. What is a problem? We know a hairdresser fixes hair. A dentist helps teeth. So if we can start with that, and then we can go even more granular when you know the person you're here for. And then what are some of the pain points? So that's just some of the ways I like to narrow lane it in my work. Tell me about how you like to approach that? We have a little bit of different take on
Yeah.
things.
Every person that we're solving problems for, we have a pattern that we consistently see, whether it was through our past life, whether it was in our careers. We've seen the recurring challenges that keep showing up. When we look at the problem, a lot of people, it is difficult. As much as we say, what problem do you solve? I solve so many problems. It's not just one problem. I solve, well, how do you narrow that down? The way I approach it, what's the recurring theme that's been coming up? What's the recurring pattern that's been showing up? If you were to articulate that to a person who has no idea, never heard of you, how would you do that?
I think one problem is all you need to start with. One deep problem, a pressing problem that it's painful enough that they're going to actually seek help for. There's a lot of problems we can solve, but unless it's pressing enough, it's just maybe someday. I like to say one problem for one particular person, and then you can branch out from there. How can we powerfully position you? And it's not just about a demographic. It can be your backstory. It can be a personal thing that you've seen as an injustice, but you also have the street cred to fix it and to help them, because we can fix problems, but unless we have the authority and the street cred and the experience, that's not going to make much sense, right? So it's all got to be, as you say so well, in alignment. It's got to be something you're good at. And also, can I add that you got to like it? Because if you don't like fixing a problem, if you don't like solving a problem, you have no business, or it's not sustainable being in that area of specialization. What's your experience on that?
I find that in my work, where is the energetic alignment in that? Do you feel excited to help this particular person? And if you're not, then we're creating a vicious cycle of inviting people into our world, into our life, who helps you pay the bills, but not necessarily challenges you to go further and get you more energetically aligned yourself. I had to let go of the projects, let go of the clients that it would have been great financially, but it just wasn't something that I felt charged, like battery was charging, it was draining.
That's a good analogy. Also, sometimes is the way you deliver. So your area of specialization, your lane, it could be still solving that problem, but maybe you approach it in a totally different way. It's almost like it doesn't have to be completely off the table. Just go a little bit deeper and say, maybe it's the manner on how I'm helping them. There's a lot of ways to specialize, but I always say this, it has to be sustainable. It has to be sustainable for you, or it's never going to, be fruitful. It'll lead to burnout, and you can't really go higher and faster if you're just trudging along. Sometimes you do have to change it all, but you definitely need an area of specialization, a narrow lane or whatever, so that people can place you. Can we agree on that?
Absolutely. I was telling you earlier that listening to Adam Grant, he talks about the expert syndrome. People almost can't relate to an expert anymore because they've traveled such a far distance.
Well, let's define expert. We're talking like a Gary Vee, an internet famous expert. Can we clarify that? Because those people seem untouchable.
There's a difference between expertise and being an expert. I'm an expert, let's say, organizational psychology. That's a specific subject matter expert. I think Gary Vee, I see him as more of a authority figure or an influencer. Expertise is more aligned with thought leadership, thought ownership, whatever the case is. You're owning into.
We talked about how we deliver on Forget Your Niche, how to claim your expertise. So let's go down that path and really show and talk about a new way, a new approach to claim your expertise.
Yeah, I think claiming that ownership, it doesn't happen overnight. The people I tend to work with, they're like, I don't want to crown myself as I'm an expert because nobody wants to put you on a pedestal kind of thing.
Can we talk about that real quick? I've heard people discuss this, two different school of thought. Some people say I'm a personal branding expert in their headline. And then some people say, I would never call myself an expert. It's like, I would never call myself a thought leader. You just are an implied one. I don't have to self-describe the word expert or thought leader. What's your take on that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with crowning yourself. My thinking is, what if we crown ourselves to be the person we want to be known as?
I'm saying using the word expert or thought leader.
I don't think that it's necessary to call.
Yeah, it should be implied, but I have seen people who say, I do this, and then this isn't meant to be derogatory. Last week they were delivering pizza. I mean, that's an extreme case made up, but I'm
Right.
just saying you got to have the cred to back it up. You got to have the cred or testimonials. So
Right.
let's go into the claiming your expertise. Owning your lane is about finding that area. What label would you crown yourself so you are top of mind and set yourself apart? Instead of niching, should we start crowning ourselves in the most
Let's just
respectful way?
crown ourselves. Nobody's going to give it to you.
There is no permission slip coming.
And here's the thing. We dance between valuing ourselves and waiting people for others to value our work. And we're constantly dancing between those two emotions. And until we realize the opportunities we create comes from a place of conviction, from convincing.
There's a quote right there. I love that. This is all what the Own Your Lane's about. It's claiming it, owning it, finding the place that you fit, you like it, you make sense for the problem and the person you're here for, and then owning it, like claiming it, crowning it.
Whatever you crown yourself is what the placement you are going to train your audience to get back to you. We're always training other people. If you want somebody a certain way to behave, then you have to train that behavior. I'd like to reframe this whole idea of niching. It's like restricting yourself. You're actually expanding. If you take a rubber band and expand.
Yes, it's still you.
But if you start from here, it doesn't work.
It's got to start from the narrow lane, and then you can always expand out.
It's a positioning tactic that you can do in your own when you have enough clarity in who you are, what you do, how you help, who you help, and all those things. And how you crown and position yourself is going to be a matter of the process of owning it.
I love that. So as we wrap up today, so everyone can understand, we're not saying get rid of the concept of niche. The term could be triggering for people, but we want you to realize as humans need context on how to place you, especially in a business setting where a business is here to solve problems. Today's world of AI and automation, we need a strong point of view. And I'm not saying we have to be polarizing or horrible, but we need a point of view because you've got to be able to set yourself apart. We have to not just blend in. I want to thank you, Humaira, for that's all for today. In the meantime, are you ready to grow your visibility, personal brand, and thought leadership? Then head on over to michellebgriffin.com for free resources to get started and get going today. And until next time, thanks for listening. Being a second-time guest on the show, you're such a deep thinker, and I love that about you. So this has been another wonderful episode. Until next time, everybody, keep putting yourself out there. You have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. I'll catch you next time. Take care. That's all for today. In the meantime, are you ready to grow your visibility, personal brand, and thought leadership? Then head on over to michellebgriffin.com for free resources to get started and get going today. And until next time, thanks for listening.